So cell membrane, it's called the lipid bilayer. Lipid because it's made of fats, bilayer because there's two layers. Check this out. These little yellow guys represent cholesterol. This is one of cholesterol's main functions, to stabilize the lipid bilayer. Cholesterol helps it become a little less fluid, helps it maintain its shape. Different levels of cholesterol mean different solidity of the lipid bilayer, cell membrane. Thank you. All right, and check it out. This is a representative protein. Proteins do many things, incredible variety of things. In this case, this is called an integrated protein with a channel. So what's happening is, in this particular protein, a particle, let's say sodium or hydrogen or whatever it's designed to do, is conveyed through the channel into the cell. If the protein channel is closed, nothing gets in. If it's open, something gets in. These proteins can be specific to the atom, so it doesn't just let anything in willy-nilly. There are other kinds of proteins in the cell, and we're going to learn about what they do, but I'm not going to focus on them right now. Integral glycoproteins, there's also glycolipids and glycocalyxes, and they act as messengers for other cells to know what they're touching, to know what's going on. The curly fries too. Basically, everything that a cell does is usually mediated by proteins of some kind. Does it accept insulin? Protein. Does it allow certain chemicals in and some out? Protein. How does what play into that? Here's my basic understanding, which is basic. Insulin is received by a receptor protein, and we'll learn about those. It's a basic kind of protein that identifies the shape of the molecule and then is brought into the cell using active transport, meaning it has to use energy through the use of ATP to bring it in, and then the insulin itself is used in the cell. That's my basic understanding. That's right. But insulin, okay, you know what? I'm going to double check and find a better answer. I might be wrong. Okay, go ahead, Coelho.
So this yellow and slash orange part on the screen.
The cytoplasm, which Andrew is referring to, is mostly water. But there are some proteins floating around and some other ions like calcium and sodium.
They're made like 90% of water.
That's right. That's right. All right. Any other questions before I move on? All right. Here we go. Moving on. So the proteins in the membrane are what we're interested in. There are these 5 kinds of proteins. There are integral proteins, peripheral proteins, anchoring, recognition, receptor, and carrier. These are all the different kinds of proteins that are possible. I'll give you a few moments to write those down. This is the figure. This is diagram 3-4 from your book. It's going to be the one we're going to be quizzing on, and it's the basic kinds of proteins that you can find in your body, in your cells. And membrane proteins are classified by position, or they're classified by function. So check it out. Here's the answer to Chase's question. If it's classified by position, you can have peripheral, means right on the outside of the membrane, like right here, or right here, or it's inside the membrane itself. It's integrated, part of the membrane itself.
Is that like contradictory then? It's either out or in?
No, it's just close, on the periphery, on the outside.
Like close to the, it's
right.
So it's right on the end or right on
right on the end or right on the inside. Right. Andrew?
Are there any others?
Not on this chart. So it can be classified by position or function. There are anchoring proteins which help cells stick together, kind of like Lego blocks sticking together. There are recognition proteins which act as signal flags for other cells. In this case, like the polysaccharide, like a protein with the polysaccharide out there, that'd be a signaling protein. It doesn't even have to be a polysaccharide, in fact. This is mainly for the immune system. How does the immune system know to attack bad guys and not you? The proteins on the edge of this, on the outside of the cell. Enzymes. Well, we remember what an enzyme is. It brings two things together. It can be an enzyme on the outside of the cell. It can be a receptor protein, which is just basically a signal. I get a signal out here. I send a message into the cell. It can be a carrier protein, which takes something from the outside and physically pushes it inside. This is used for particles that can't easily go through the membrane itself. It could be a leak channel. So in this case, it's not physically moving something in, but it's just like turning on a pipe or turning off a pipe. I'm sorry, never mind. It's just like a pipe. It's not even got. It doesn't even have a valve. All it is just a tube into the cell. And then finally, you've got gated channels. Those are just like a faucet. Turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. Basically, this is the main function of a barrier. Let certain things in, make sure some things don't get out. Make sure certain reactions happen at the barrier. Make sure certain reactions don't happen. Make sure that you're recognized by other entities outside of you so that you don't get harmed. And make sure that messages from other cells, for example, receptor proteins, get translated into the cell itself. Membranes have proteins, and proteins dictate the function of the cell. Any questions? Move on. So let's talk a little bit more about membrane carbohydrates. Membrane carbohydrates form the glycocalyx.
Wait, is that the wrong side?
I'm going to find out what that means later and tell you. Let's move on. The cytoplasm. The fluid, what we talked about before, was the cytoplasm. And the organelles inside the cell are inside of the cytosol. Go ahead. Did we? Let me just double check. Did I just skip something? Okay, we're coming back to this slide, and we're going to read from page 73 in your book, talking about membrane carbohydrates. Carbohydrates account for roughly 3% of the weight of a cell membrane, page 73. The carbohydrates in the cell membrane are components of complex molecules such as proteoglycans, glycoproteins, and glycolipids. The carbohydrate portion of these large molecules extend beyond the outer surface of the membrane, forming a layer known as the glycocalyx. The glycocalyx has a variety of important functions, including the following. Okay, so what does that mean in our picture? The glycocalyx would be this area right on the outside where these carbohydrates are. Does that make sense? So in red I'm going to outline the cell membrane, and the glycocalyx is just this area outside of the cell membrane that encompasses all of those carbohydrates. It's on the outside, yeah. Okay, so that's what the glycocalyx is. So what does it do? Well, it says it's lubricant protection. Glycoproteins and glycoproteins layer that lubricates and protects the cell membrane. This means kind of thick. The glycocalyx can help anchor the cell in place. It also participates in the locomotion of specialized cells. Movement. So how they move. Another thing, specificity in binding. Glycoproteins and glycolipids can function as receptors, binding specific extracellular components. Such binding can alter the properties of the cell surface and indirectly affect the cell's behavior. And finally, recognition. Glycoproteins and glycolipids are recognized as normal or abnormal by cells involved with the immune response. The characteristics of the glycocalyx are generally determined, for example, the characteristics of the glycocalyx are generally determined. For example, the presence or absence of a membrane glycolipids on circulating red blood cells determines your blood type. Are you A? Are you B? Are you AB or O? It all depends on what your glycolipids are on the outside of your cell membrane. Yeah. The body's immune system can recognize its own membrane glycoproteins and lipids as self rather than foreign. This recognition system keeps your immune system from attacking your blood cells while still enabling it to recognize and destroy foreign cells should they appear in the bloodstream. And if you've ever heard of an autoimmune disease, basically your immune system gets confused and attacks your own cells.
Oh, I knew a person.
Is that like diabetes kind of?
Yeah, I think that happens.
Attacks the pancreas?
You're running out of time.
Yep. Oh, thank you, Sarai. I'm running out of... All right.